I want this video to work in conjunction with the last one when we broke down and analyzed question 5 from Leaving Cert paper. In this one I'm going to do a worked example so you can see the actual thought processes behind doing one of these questions. Okay, so here's what you're given in this paper. You're given a melody and bass line which lasts for 2 bars in this case. The melody goes on then and it continues right up to the end, and you're also given the first 3 chords here. You will also be given chord boxes that are written in here. So I don't have them on this particular one, but I've got them written down on a sheet here beside me so that I can see we've got I can see how often the chords change. So sometimes you might have 2 chords per bar, just like here, and in other bars you might be expected to just have 1 chord continuing on for the entire thing. Okay, so the first thing I really need to notice when I look at this is what key I'm in. I'm in the key of B flat major, as we can see from the 2 flats in our key signature and also from the B flat chord here right at the beginning. So I would have my chord box written out here beside me with the notes of in the key of B flat major and the different chords and what notes they're made up of. So we're just going to have to imagine that's there for the moment because I don't have anything similar on this program. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by putting the chords in. This is actually a particularly unusual question in that it's not 16 bars long like most of them, it's 18 bars they did in this particular year. But it's still the exact same principle the entire way through. So I'm going to try and work out my chords mostly from the melody, but I'm also going to use some of the notes of the bass line here for this bit. Okay, so my very first chord, I've only got 1 chord to put in this bar. They have 1 chord box on the paper. And if we're in the key of B flat, I have to remember that the chords I really want to be the chords I'm really allowed to use are B flat, E flat, and F, because those are the chords 1, 4, and 5. I can also use, because I'm in a major key, I can use chord 2 this time, and I can also use chord 6. But my strongest chords are chords 1, 4, and 5, so I want to use those predominantly, but I do want to use a little bit of chord 2 and chord 6. I want to be very careful that at no point I use chord 2 going to chord 1 because that progression is not allowed. So what chord can I possibly use here? Well, in my bass I've got an E flat. So the only chords I could possibly have there are an E flat major chord, or I could have a C minor chord in first inversion, so chord 2B. But we know that chord 4 is chord B flat is chord 4 in the key of B flat, which is one of the strongest ones. It's much stronger than the chord 2B. So I'm going to use an E flat here. So I'm just going to put in my E flat chord there. Okay, and that takes me up to the next bar. Now we've only got melody to work with from this point on. So here we've got an E flat note beginning the bar. On other strong beats we've got a C note, and we've also got an A note. I'm going to ignore that A note, and since we got an E flat and a C, both of those chords are in the chord of C minor, which is chord 2. So I'm going to use chord 2 here, C minor. Okay, because I can't use chord 4 again, E flat, because I've just used it here. So C minor is kind of like the obvious choice. So that's for that whole bar. In the original paper, we've got 1 chord box for this bar, and the note held through nearly the entire thing is a chord of F, and that's actually really good because that sets us up with a nice imperfect cadence at our cadence point here, because F is chord 5. So I'm going to have an F chord there, okay, because I have to think in terms of my cadences. Alright, we're starting a new phrase now, so I want to have a particularly strong chord here. We've got the note of D flat, the note of D, and the note of B flat. Then we've got a B flat with a little A passing note. So the main notes on the strong beats here are note D and the notes B flat. So that really outlines to me the chord of B flat, which is chord 1, which is perfect. Chord 1 is really strong to start a new phrase with, and it's just really strong to use anywhere. Okay, next bar, we've actually got 2 chord boxes here, one for beats 1 and 2, and one for beats 3 and 4. So if I look at this, I've got an E flat and a G note here. So if I think back to my chords, my strongest chords are B flat, E flat, and F, because they are chords 1, 4, and 5. And out of those chords, the one that these notes suggest is E flat, because E flat will be the root of that chord, and G here will be the third. So I'm going to use an E flat chord here. Nice strong chord 4. Okay, in our next chord, we've got a C note, and we've got a D and an E flat. But I'm going to treat that D as an accented passing note. So it's basically a passing note between the C and the E flat, even though it's on a strong beat. And I'm going to use a chord that uses the notes of C and E flat, and that is a C minor chord. Okay, going pretty well so far. Okay, in the next bar, we've again got two chords. And this one is a little bit more complicated. We've got a D and an F here. So we could have chord 1 here, which would be B flat. That would be probably our best bet. We could also have no, actually, yeah, it's pretty much, it has to be chord 1. In a major key, there's a very common chord progression where you have chord 1 in second inversion. That means chord 1 with the fifth note of the chord in the scale. So fifth note of the chord in the bass. Then that goes to chord 5, and then that goes back to chord 1 in its root position. And I'm going to do that here. I'm going to use, because it's a good little progression to have at a cadence point. So I'm going to have B flat slash F. That's chord 1 with the fifth, which is F, in the bass. That means I'm going to have an F in my bass line here. Okay, because the note after the slash comes in the bass line. And then I'm going to have chord 5. I know D isn't one of the notes of chord 5, but on the weaker beats, we've got C and A. And that kind of sets us up nicely going to a B flat here then for a nice little perfect cadence. There are other options here. I could have chord 1 here and maybe try and have something else at the end. I could have a chord 6 here at the end. I could have an interrupted cadence. So I could have B flat slash F followed by B flat. I know that's two B flats in a row, but because this has F in the bass, it changes it a little bit. So I could have B flat slash F followed by a B flat followed by a G minor chord, but I'm going to stick to what I have. I think it works quite well. These accented passing notes here give a nice little bit of color. Okay, so I'm on to bar 9 now. In my previous bar I had a B flat, and as you can see inside of bar 9 I've got a B flat note again, followed by a B flat and a B flat again. So it's really the only note of any prominence in this bar, other than this lower auxiliary A note here, is a B flat. But I can't have the chord of B flat here, because I've just had B flat in the previous bar. So I need to think about what other chords could I use there that would have a B flat note in there. And the only one that really comes to mind is chord 6, a G minor. Okay, I could also have chord 4, which is an E flat, but I want to get that G minor in there because I haven't used it yet and I want to just change it up a little bit. Okay, in our next bar, the notes in the strong beats are B flat, and on beat 4 we've got a G. So that actually suggests either a G minor or an E flat. They're the only two chords that have in this key that have a B flat and a G in there. And I've had G minor in the previous bar, so that means the only one that I could possibly have left here is an E flat. Okay, just need to move that up a little bit. Okay, so we've got our E flat there. On the original paper, we've got two chords to put in this bar. So on the first beat, we've got the notes E flat and C. So that's perfect for a C minor chord, for chord 2. Notes C and E flat, but really strong in that chord. In the next bar, sorry, on the next two beats of this bar, we've got the notes E flat, F, C, and E flat. There are a couple of chords we could have there, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use chord 5-7. I've said before that it's good to get at least 1/7 chord in if possible. I've said it in a previous video, and it's important to have your 7th chord at a cadence point. And this is a cadence point. We're going to have, if you look at the bar 12, we've got a D note held for a long time, which is perfect for the chord of B flat. We've also got an F and a B flat all in kind of strong places here. So that really suggests chord 1, B flat there. So to make a really good cadence to that, I'm going to have chord 5, 7 here because we've got note 7 of chord 5, which is an E flat on a strong beat. We've also got the root of chord 5, we've got the fifth of chord 5, that's a C, and we've got the 7. So these are all notes of chord 5, 7 here. So I'm going to have F7 at this particular point. And it sets us up with a really nice perfect cadence here. Okay, so on to the last line. We've got two chords in this bar. So on my strong beat here, I've got D and B flat. So I could have a chord of B flat here, but I can't because I've had it in the previous bar. So the other chords I could have, the only other chord I could have actually is a G minor, which is chord 6. It's the only other chord in that key that has the notes D and B flat in it. Okay, the next two main beats, which are beats 3 and 4, I've got the note D both times. So I could have any chord that has a note D in there. That could be a G minor, but it can't be because I've just used it. The other note in this key that has the note D in there is chord 3, which I also can't use. So the only chord I could possibly have here is a B flat. It's the only chord left in the key other than G minor, which I've just used, and chord 3, which I can't use. It's the only one left that has a D in it. So this has to be chord 1, B flat here. Okay. Next bar is actually just a repeat of this bar here. So you've got G, E flat, C, going up. Oh, you got it here again. G, E flat, C, and then going back up. So I'm going to use the same chords again. I used E flat, C minor here. I'm just going to do the exact same thing again. So I'm going to go E flat, and I'm going to go to C minor. Okay. Our next bar, we've only got one chord on the original paper. And it's actually, if I'm correct, yes, it's the exact same as this one here, except whereas before they allowed me to have two chords in this bar, this time I'm only allowed to have one chord. So I'm going to use B flat slash F again. The reason I'm kind of doing that is because if I look at the next bar, where I've also got one chord, it pretty much perfectly outlines the chord B flat. It goes B flat, D, B flat, D, on all the strong beats. So this is pretty much certainly going to be a B flat chord here. And I can't have B flat twice in a row, and B flat is also really strongly outlined on the note strong beats of this bar. We've got the notes D, F, D, and B flat, which are all notes of the chord of B flat. So because I can't use B flat twice in a row, I'm going to have to use an inversion of B flat. So I'm going to use B flat slash F again. Since I've used it before, it's already kind of established. So I'm going to use B flat slash F again. And then we've got our cadence. So I know we're going to end on a B flat on the home on chord 1. And I know it's going to be a perfect cadence. Apart from the fact that this outlines the chord F perfectly, we know that we always end with a perfect cadence. So I'm going to have to put F in there. And then the first two beats of this bar, we've got the notes E flat and G. Sorry. So I could have either an E flat chord or a C minor chord here. Either one would work perfectly fine. It doesn't make a difference. I'm just going to use E flat. For no particular reason, C minor would work just as well. I've just decided to use E flat. Okay, so we've got all our chords in there now. Next thing we need to look at is adding in our bassline. The bassline is not particularly difficult in this case because you're essentially just following the pattern they've already given you. A lot of the time it's crotchet movement with a crotchet rest after it, and every so often you can use a little flourish of 4 quavers like this. So those are the only rhythms we're going to use. What we do want to have, and it's a really important thing to use in question 5, is if you've got movement in your melody. So if we've got like a run of quavers in a melody like here, we want to have not too much movement in our bass. We want to have long notes held in the bass. If you've got places where you've not got much movement in your melody, so for example here in bar 5 where you've got a crotchet and just 2 quavers, you can have a lot more movement in the left hand. You can have some quavers here on beat 3 where there's just a crotchet before. So it's good to have movement in either one of the two hands. If it's a long note in the right hand, you want to have movement in the left. If it's movement in the right hand, you want to have long notes in the left. Okay. And other than that, in terms of what notes to choose, we're really just outlining the chords. So for example, let's get started. On this beat here, we're outlining a C minor chord. So we really just want to use notes of the chord of C minor. the root note being the strongest. So I'm going to start with a C. Okay. Then we have a crotchet rest because I'm following this pattern here, followed by another crotchet, and I'm going to just jump up to another C because a root note is probably the strongest. Okay, next we're on to chord F, and I'm gonna use this rhythm here. I'm gonna use the crotchet followed by a crotchet rest and then 4 quavers, and it has to start on an F note because that's the root note of a chord. Then I'm gonna have my 4 quavers. In terms of choosing which 4 quavers to use, I need to look at the chord that comes after it. So my 4 quavers need to lead to a B flat note. So, for example, I could do a straight run down like this, where it just goes straight to a B flat. I could do lots of different things. I could go F here and then jump down the octave to a lower F, like that, and then do a run up to B flat. There's lots of different options here. Any one that will work, but you want to lead nicely to a nice B flat note for this one. I'll leave the one that I have there. It's perfectly fine. Okay, I'm going to stick with my crotchet rest, and then flourish of quavers movement here. So my crotchet's going to be on a B flat. We've got a crotchet rest, and then we've got a little flourish of quavers, and the flourish of quavers has to lead somehow to an E flat note. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go B flat, C, D. Okay, I can't have an E flat here because I'll have an E flat twice in a row there. So what I'm going to do is jump over the E flat to an F, and that kind of frames the E flat note with the 2 notes around it before we get to the E flat. Okay, then I'll land with my crotchet on E flat. I've used the quaver movement in the last 2 bars, so I'm just going to stick to crotchets for this one. Okay, E flat, this one has to be C because it's on a C chord. Okay, then we've got a crotchet rest. We've got a B flat slash F, so I'm going to use an F note here. Then our crotchet rest, and I'm going to use another F here because it's an F, so I'll jump down the octave. And in our last bar, I'm going to use that little flourish of quavers again. So I have to start on a B flat, because that's our chord, and our crotchet rest, and I'm going to use a little flourish of quavers then. And our flourish of quavers has to lead to a G minor. Sorry, it has to lead to a G note because we've got G minor here. So I'm going to use a similar pattern to what I used up here, where I have a note, then jump down and come back up. So I'm going to start with my high B flat here, and I'm going to jump down not all the way to a B flat because that won't lead us to a G. I'm going to jump down to a D note because that's also a note of the chord of B flat. B flat is made up of the notes B flat, D, and F. So I'm going to jump down to a D note, then lead up nicely here to a G. Okay, got a crotchet G here. Okay, excellent. So now we're on a G minor chord. I'll use the flourish of quavers again. I could use just crotchet movement if I wanted, crotchets and crotchet rests, but I've decided to use quavers. Why not? And that has to lead to an E flat note. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my G repeated here, and then I'm going to use almost the exact pattern they've got here, where I go up and back down. I'm going to go up to an A and back down. I could also use the exact pattern they've used, where I go up to a B flat and back down. B flat is a note of G minor, so I'm going to go up. See, they've done it here on an E flat. They go to E flat, jump up by a third, back down, and then lead down diatonically. I'm just going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go G, B flat, and then lead back down. Because that leads us nicely to our E flat note here, which will be on a crotchet. Okay. I'm going to keep going with this same pattern here. You know what? I've actually got a nice little sequence going here. I'm going to go E flat on this one, and do the exact same pattern that I've done before. Just like here. So we've got a nice little sequence in our bass here, which is a nice musical device to use where possible. Okay, because we've got 2 chords per bar here, it's just a little bit easier for me to use crotchet movement rather than the quavers. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go C here, crotchet rest, and then an F. Actually, I'll go down to an F. I've been using quite a lot of high notes to the left hand. So just for a bit of contrast, I'll go down to that F. And then on a B flat chord, we have to have B flat followed by a crotchet rest. And I'm going to do a flourish of quavers again because I keep doing it at the end of a phrase. So it's something I want to continue using. And it needs to lead to a G. So Last time I had a high G, I'm going to try and lead to a low G this time. So, you know what? If I want to go to a low G, I can use this exact device I used here, where I go up by a third, back down, and then lead down diatonically to this G. So that works really, really well. I've got this device that they've used in the opening, so I'm showing that I've used their ideas. And I've got it again and again, 3 times there, just to show that I really noticed the ideas that they had in the original bar, and I really worked with the style they've given me. Okay, so I'm going to have my crotchet rest here. I'm going to use another crotchet. Anywhere I've got 2 chords, it's just handy to use just 2 crotchets. I can have another B flat here, followed by another crotchet rest. Got an E flat chord here, so I'm going to have an E flat note. I'm not going to keep doing the crotchet movement. I don't want to get too boring. So on my C chord, I have to have a C note here, and I need to get to an F because it's B flat slash F, and whatever's after the slash, it has to be in the left hand. And this actually leads really nicely down, just right down the scale to an F. So when you're going from a C note down to an F, you can just go straight down like that, and then I'll have my crotchet movement. Okay, so back to crotchets, I'm going to jump up the octave here. I could keep the low F, but I might as well jump up just to keep it a little bit interesting. Beginning of the next bar, have to have a B flat. I'll go for the high B flat. We've been coming up the way, so I might as well keep it coming up. Okay, I'm going to have a little bit of quaver movement here. I'm going to have my little flourish of quavers, and because I'm going to make that lead nicely down to a B flat here. So I can go right from B flat down to E flat, just the same as I've done here, and it sets us up nicely for that E flat note right here. Then I go E flat, crotchet rest, F, crotchet rest, and then just make sure I end. Because I've had a 4 quaver upbeat here, I have to take that off the end because I've got an anacrusis. So I just have to do a minim here at the end rather than a semiquaver, which you would expect. And it has to be on a B flat. Cool. Alright, and I'm just going to delete that rest. Okay, so let's just have a quick listen to that and see how it sounds now.